Hello, friends, and welcome to your midweek slice of the Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. Slice, of course, being a very apt term to use because Ipswich Town smashed Gillingham in the Pizza Trophy midweek. Crisis? What crisis? We're going to Wembley, lads. Let me introduce, first of all, the man who stood in for me as host and did what some have called the most incredible intro of all time for Kings of Anglia podcast. So less of that, Mike. Stop making me look expendable. A man who was also called this week a phenomenon. And another member of the KOA Army said he has to be protected at all costs. Now, given your age, Mike, I'm assuming he means from high cholesterol and that kind of thing. But how are you? The big pork thing, the pork poncho, the big porker, the grand porcine, Michael of House Bacon. How are you?
Well, thank you very much, Heath. Yes, I'm very well. Thank you very much. And I appreciate all the concerns about me being looked after. I did note those comments. I don't always like them on Twitter and retweet them because I sometimes press the wrong button. So I decided to just read them really rather than press the wrong thing and get myself in a pickle. But thank you to all those who enjoyed the intro and the comments. I really do appreciate it. Yes, I'm very well. I had a little bit of trouble with the old. I have a smoothie in the morning. You know, I put a little bit of yogurt and banana and stuff in a smoothie, and then whiz it all up. You know, a little trouble with the smoothie this morning because I didn't put the lid on properly. So I pressed the button and squirt everywhere. It was schoolboy error.
What blender have you got? Have you gone top grade NutriBullet blender? What have you got?
No, only a little plastic one from Aldi, but I mean it seems to do the job. And I'm into sort of a little bit of health kit. I'm being the wife's giving me a little bit of a health. I think I've my days of doner kebabs at 12:30 at night with heavy on the chili are sort of starting to get a bit behind me now. So I'm being sort of geared around to like shakes in the morning, which.
Well, the KOA Army would be very happy to hear that. As I say, they want you to be protected at all costs, wrapped up in cotton wool and protected as the kind of artifact. Artifact sounds disrespectful, actually. That makes you sound old, doesn't it?
It does make you sound old, yes.
The crown jewel that you are in the Kings of Anglia crown. And of course, another jewel, a gem in that crown, your boy, Hutch Hogan, Andy Warren, the only man, I reckon, in the country, Andy, who's happy that the weather is getting colder and more depressing.
It's not depressing. This is great, comfortable. Sorry, some people have just finished some work in my garden. They've helping me out with something. I'm saying goodbye.
Excellent, superb. What work was it?
Mate, just finishing off a patio. Actually, it's topical because I'll be out lounging on that in the cold October air, just in time for winter. Why not get a patio done?
Why not?
So there we are.
What kind of patio paving are we talking? Are we going new school? Are we going old school? What's the deal?
I couldn't tell you which was which.
What are we doing? There's some very, very kind of very flash granity style paving you can get now.
I wouldn't say it's flat. I think it's functional. It's it's kind of just some stone. It's not decking. It's stone.
Nice.
Lots of different shapes and sizes. Don't know if that's new school or old school, but
so it's not uniform. We're talking.
It's not uniform. No.
Oh, lovely.
No, I'll send you a picture later. But it's,
that is top bins. I think we need to share that with the KOA Army as well.
Mike, I'm sure they'll be absolutely buzzing for that.
Of course they will. And Mike, while we're on general DIY chat, before we get on to what we're actually here for, which is talk about football, how's your wall?
Well, it hasn't really progressed much since I spoke last, to be honest, because I mean, I don't want these guys to be perfectly frank, probably go around doing other people's patios rather than getting on with the job in hand. It's taken them far too long, but it's starting to come along nicely now. I can look and see it now. Actually, I think one of them has just turned up as we speak, which is nice. What time is it now? About 11 o'clock. That sounds about right. So he'll be here for an hour and then go and have a lunch, I expect. So, slow pace. Actually, I told Andy I could do with a picture of that patio because do they do driveways? These people, who are doing it. If they do, I'd be interested.
I'll pass you on their details.
Thank you.
Superb. Excellent.
Eat a lot. You get through a lot of tea. These guys. So you'd need to be prepared for that.
Drink a lot of tea. Yeah, it's true. Have to have green tea in our house, of course, because we're very healthy. Or perhaps a little bit of red rose sort of. We've got a little fruit teas at the moment. I'm being sort of slowly fed, which. Not really.
I love this idea that it's actually you that makes a smoothie in the morning. I'd imagine that it's Tracy kind of standing over watching, or at least making it for you, making sure you get all your nutrients in, and then have a green tea and do 50 press ups before she goes to work or something.
Exactly. You're not far wrong. That's how you can tell she wasn't here this morning when it all went horribly wrong.
That's quite a change from the usual Cocoa Pops breakfast, Mike.
I had Cocoa Pots for years, to be honest. I mean, I loved Cocoa Pots, but I tell you, I always had Weetabix. A friend of mine always has 2 Weetabix. This is a bit of a trick I play. When we're on our golf holidays, he has 2 Weetabix every single day, and he has done for 65 years. And of course, the Weetabix are even on each side. And on the golf trip, I always take one out, just a little trick. And when he gets down the last one, it freaks him out because there's only one left.
Dear oh dear, the fun
Very
you
childish,
have.
I know.
The fun you have. Can I come on the next trip? Sounds amazing. Sounds mental. Anyway, boys, speaking of mental, Ipswich Town got back on the winning run on Tuesday night in the Pizza Trophy in front of a crowd of just over 1,000 at Gillingham. What a sexy fixture this was. The Pizza Trophy, Ipswich Town swept aside Gillingham 2-0. Andy Hutch-Hogan Warren, you were there. Me and Mike weren't. So you're going to do all the heavy lifting in this particular section. What did you make of it? Give us your thoughts.
But you were gutted, weren't you?
Absolutely gutted to be sat at home doing the production stuff behind the scenes.
I always enjoy this competition for what it is, and this was as comfortable as can be, really. I'm sure we'll talk about Mr. Evans' bleating comments afterwards again at some point in a moment, but while you could maybe debate a couple of those points that he raised in terms of refereeing, I think Ipswich were really comfortable throughout this one. They had the better of it in every area of the pitch without going mad about it, and got the job done. And as you said at the beginning, the Wembley dream is firmly back on.
Of course, all this win does is really make the clash, the Chambers/Skuse reunion clash, super sexy, because it could well be that whoever wins that game goes through and ultimately goes on to lift that trophy at Wembley. Any sign any sign of pizza at these games yet, Hutchie? I know you were saying no. When do we get pizza at these bloody games?
I dread that they should do something. Like, you'd think, like, could there be like a halftime competition for a fan to win a pizza?
Yeah.
Fans that attend the game get a code if you're at the game, or if you buy the iFollow pass, you also get a discount code for Papa John's. Come on, Papa John's, let's step it up a bit.
Forget about the fans. It's in the press room we want the pizzas. That's where the pizzas should be. If they're really taking care of the people covering these games. Let's be honest, they're a bit of a slog to cover. So all we need is a few pizzas in there. Before we move on to the football again, boys, pizza toppings. First of all, is anyone in this virtual room eat their pizza with a knife and fork? Because if so, you can leave now. Good. Yeah, pizza toppings, boys. What's your favourite pizza topping, and where do you stand on pineapple on a pizza, Mike?
Well, pineapple is totally unacceptable, of course, as we all know. You don't put pineapple on a pizza. I mean, I'm sorry. I know I've offended half a zillion people with that one comment, but I'm sorry. You just do not. It makes it gooey, and I don't understand what it does. It sort of squelches as you sort of...
Doesn't make it gooey. What are you on about? It's lovely.
Don't like it. Anyway,
okay,
so that's the end of that. So pepperoni should always be on a pizza. Nice lumps of pepperoni and onion. See, I like taste. I like tangy taste. I'd have chili dogs on them if I could, but little small chili dogs just on the pizzas.
Like a meat feast.
A meat feast is my favourite, Heathy. Yes, absolutely. I'm not a pineapple man. Not one little bit. We'll be having aubergines on them next. I mean, what earth we think of? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Crazy. Absolute madness. Absolute madness. Hutchie, you, of course, have been to the home of pizza, Naples. And I remember talking to you about this. You said you had the best pizza of all time in that location. Tell the people.
Just had aubergine on it. Honestly, that changed my outlook on pizza. Ever since it's just a very simple cheese and tomato pizza, and ever since that's kind of been what I really like now, in that vibe of pizza. If you're talking, like, I guess the word would be artisan, would be rustic. Yeah, just cheese and tomato with maybe a little bit of basil on it. If we're talking dirty takeaway pizza, I've created my own. Is I always have ham, beef, and sweet red pepper. If they can be got, which they can at one of the establishments, but not the one that sponsors the trophy, because I'm not a fan of that at all. If I'm completely honest, but I'm quite simple with my pizzas. I don't want loads of stuff on there, and I'll be completely honest. I'm right down the middle on the pineapple thing. I'm fine with it, but I wouldn't choose it.
I love pineapple on a pizza. Obviously, the cheese, tomato, and basil there, Hutchie, you referred to the margarita, the classic margarita was designed, of course, around the Italian flag. There's your entertainment, your edutainment for today. And also, I'm keen to know, given your standing in Ipswich and the surrounds, can people walk into a pizza chain now and just ask for the Hutch? Then is that what they'll get?
I'll have to change the name. I mean, it is registered with Domino's.
There we go.
Full disclosure. I haven't
Let
had
us
one
know.
from there for years, but I did kind of create it and save it on there, so you might be able to get it. Try it. You like it?
Walk in this weekend, get yourself a Hutch after the game Saturday, perhaps. Let us know how you get on. For me, we've got our own pizza oven because I'm a bit flash and fancy like that, and that has ruined all other pizza for me. Has to be homemade, has to be quality. Anyway, boys, speaking of quality, let's jump back to the football. Myles Kenlock started, Hutchie. You were right.
Yeah, a lucky guess. A very lucky guess indeed. But as Paul Cook said after the game, a reward for coming to work and not being a pain. Which, given to the extent that he's been completely frozen out and basically told you can't do your job here. We'd like you to leave, please. I think a lot of players probably would have been a bit of a pain in that time. Myles clearly hasn't. Some warm words from Paul Cook about him after the game, and what is probably a small reward for being a good professional in a tough situation. I guess it would help that maybe some teams might remember he exists and fancy a dabble for him, because I think he's still available. I think you'll probably ask this next, but I don't think there's an awful lot in terms of a way back for him here. This doesn't mean very much at all, I wouldn't say, other than a gesture to a guy who's gone about the limited business he's allowed to do pretty well, I would say.
And he can't play, can he?
He can't play, no.
So he can only play in the trophy and any cup games, pretty much.
I think he could play in the FA Cup, yeah, and the big Colchester game, which it is winner takes all now. That game, the winner of that game, be it in 90 minutes or be it in a penalty shootout.
Oh my goodness! Be still my beating heart.
It'd be a winner takes all scenario. So he could be involved in that, and we know what Myles Kenlock does in penalty shootouts. Do you remember his little jig against Peterborough that Paul Lambert described as being like John Travolta? That could be the winning penalty.
When do we start the build up to that? Because that is the game of the season. It's just over a month away. I'm excited. Mike, I'm sure, is excited. Luke Chambers could end up deciding that tie on a penalty, Hutchie. Imagine
he could.
Imagine that.
He could. I'm sure they'll all be absolutely buzzing to play in that game, but they've not really featured in it. They didn't play in the competition the first time around in the first game. I think Luke Chambers played in the next one against West Ham, and I think there probably might be a scenario here where the senior members of Colchester United squad are going to Hayden Mullins, the manager, and pushing for this. Luke's already missed out. If you remember, missed out on that game at Old Trafford against Wayne Rooney. He's not going to
similar level.
Yeah, he's not going to want to miss out on this one against Ipswich's reserves. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll push for it.
I'm excited already, boys. When's that? November the 9th, isn't it? Put that in your diary right now. Yeah. Biggest game of the season, Tuesday. To
be fair, the pre-season the pre-season game at Colchester, you were there, Andy, weren't you? You were at the pre-season game at Colchester. I mean, it was quite a little event, to be honest. For a pre-season friendly, it was quite tasty. I quite enjoyed it. Colchester played some great stuff, and I think it finished about 3-3, didn't it? So yes, it's certainly going to be the game of the. Yes, it's certainly going to be the game of the week. That week,
the game being played in North Essex that evening. That's the way you sell it. All right.
It's in Suffolk. It's Portman Road, mate.
Oh, it's at Portman Road. The game being played in Suffolk, in Ipswich that evening. All right, get on it. That's the way. There's your tagline, boys. Promo boys. Hutchie, before we move on, we should make mention, of course, that your erstwhile colleague, partner in crime, Thunder and Lightning, dynamic duo, your boy Stuart Watson, work husband, rubbished you when you said Kenlock was going to play. He said he would have gone £1 million in, Kenlock not playing. This is the same guy who said Akin Stanley were bang in trouble last week before Town got beat 2-1 there. So a word for Stu, who's currently lying down in a darkened room, fully ashamed of himself.
Is that why you told him he couldn't come on today.
He said, I want to be on. I said, look, Stu, I'll be honest with you. Mike Bacon's far more popular than you. And also you've made a complete tits of yourself with that Kenlock comment last week. Go and sit down, have a little think, come back to us when you've fully got your head back in the game.
It was just a lucky guess.
You're so modest. Come
what
on.
Do you want me to? Oh, I hate Stu.
I want you just to say it proves that I know so much more than Stu. He's a joke.
It proves that I'm the better one of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, come on.
In all ways.
Come on, you could beat him in a fight as well, couldn't you? Take him out.
Oh yeah, we've discussed that.
Absolutely.
We know that. We know.
Anyway, I'm getting excited. Let's go back to the game. Gillingham 2-0. Mike, what did you make of the side that our fearless leader Paul Cook put out? There were obviously a lot of changes. Were you happy with the side that he picked? Do you even know the side that he picked? I'm hoping you do.
No idea what it was. To be honest, obviously it was clearly strong enough. Yes, I had a pretty good idea what it was. I did sort of have a flick at what it was. I mean, it's a side that most League One teams would probably put in the lower echelons of League One would happily put out on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, that's how strong the squad is. I mean, it was good. It was a good team. I'm glad he put out what he did. But I mean, when you got Wolfenden, Zala, Vincent Young, Piggott. I mean, these Chaplin. I mean, these players are all League One players. I mean, they are League One players. It's extraordinary that we've got this. I don't know how we lost to Newport. How did we lose to Newport? I can't remember what team was that day. It must have been, how did we lose to West Ham? Because, we clearly have this strength in depth. And I was glad to see it. I'd have been very cross if we'd lost to Gillingham with half a side, totally unnecessary. We've got the players. Players want to play. There's nothing Piggott what to do more than score. There's nothing Chaplin what to do more than score. Don't tell them it's the Papa John's Pizza Express, Domino's, Fayett's Bake, whatever it is, trophy. They want to score goals. They want to play. I was glad to see the team he put out. More of that, please. Come the FA Cup first round. Don't say it, but we've got to say it. FA Cup first round, which will be coming up not too distant future. Whoever we get, let's go for it with a stronger team than that. I like to see it. Good. Got our rewards for putting out a decent side.
Who would have ever thought that we'd have Carl Edwards playing in the Pizza Trophy, Hutchie? But that's what happened. Who stood out for you? Because obviously there were quite a few talking points. Holy back in goal, kept a clean sheet. KVY back at right back, did a good job. And the lad Iddy in midfield. El Mazzuni's doing himself the world of good, isn't he?
Yeah, he was my pick of the bunch. Just looks at home in that deeper role. We've largely in first team sort of football seen him play higher as a 10, or we've seen him play on the wing before, but he looks at home there. He looks like he's bulked up a little bit. He's got a bit of a glide about him, maybe a swagger's maybe a little too far, but he's got a glide about him. He's responsible on the ball. He's sharp enough in the tackle, and he played better than Harper for me. He faces a real job from this point to push past like Morsey and Evans. I've thought even Tom Carroll when he's fit again, but I think he's very much played his way into Paul Cook's first team squad, which he wasn't at the start of the season. He was right on the fringe of that, but I think he's played his way in. He played very well, and the two centre halves, I think they both played well, particularly Toto and Ciala. I thought Luke Wolfenden had a really good game as well, but particularly Toto. From this point, I'd really like to see Toto really, really pushing for a start at the heart of defence, probably alongside George Edmondson. He's not there yet. I think there's more. There's sort of more movement to come there if he's going to have to do more, and Burgess is probably going to have to underperform for Toto to push in there. But he needs to really be pushing because I think he could be a viable option there. Should another option be needed?
What do you like so much about Toto? The physicality of him?
Yeah, it's that, and he's cut out the errors. We can never. He will make another mistake in football again. Every player does. But it's been a consistent run now where that hasn't been an element of his game. We've known in the past that he's had consistent runs where those errors have been in his game and we're expecting them, but they're not now. He's cut them out. His big problem is just getting injured when his chance is there. It happened again this summer. It was there for him. Edmondson wasn't fit to play. Burgess wasn't in the building. and Toto goes and gets injured at the start of the season. I think that he's consistent. That's consistently happened to him when a big chance arrives for him. The injuries happen, and I really feel for him because he could still be in the side now, in the league side now, had that not happened. But he faces a fight to get back in there. But I really like how he's reacted to coming back from that loan at Bolton. When was that? January 2020, I think he went there. I really like how he's come back from that, and I'd hope that he'll be pushing for like a real place in this team soon enough.
And when you talk about injuries, obviously Hutchie, the man synonymous with injuries in Ipswich Town squad, unfortunately, is Kane Vincent-Young. Started the season very ropily, a shadow of his former self. What did you make of him in this game? Because clearly at the moment he is the backup to Janoi Dinassian, something we never thought we'd say before the season started.
He was better. He looked more like himself. Not anything to go overboard on, I wouldn't say at this point. But he looked better. I think maybe it seems silly to say at this point of the season, but maybe the little rest he's had over the last week or two it might have helped a little bit. So yeah, I think he's going to have to be content with playing in these games for a little while, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing to sort of build up through training again. But he looked better. He looked better in this game, and but nothing to go absolutely mad about, I wouldn't say.
Okay. Any other notes from the game itself? Because I'm itching to ask Mike about Steve Evans.
But yeah, well, I'll try to be brief because we all need to talk about Steve Evans. He's a special. He's a phenomenon, just like Mike. I think Carl Edwards was a little quiet. I'll just go through a few of the players quite quickly. Connor Chaplin came into the game really nicely, quiet in the first half, but got more involved in the second. Took his goal really well. Joe Pigott took his really well. That ball bobbled up. I don't know if you've watched the highlights of the goal, but that ball really quite bobbled. It was off the floor just as it came to him. Great pass from Caden Jackson, good finish from Joe Pigott, and a really good ball from Pigott for Chaplin's equaliser. And I thought Caden played quite well as well on wide on the right. Again, without going overboard, on the way home in the car, kind of Stu likened his style of playing that role to being kind of a bit of a Wes Burns tribute act, which I think was fair. He played it in the same way that Wes Burns plays it. He needs the ball to run at someone, whereas Burns maybe wants the ball at his feet to run at someone. Caden wants the ball played ahead of him to run past someone. With Caden, he's capable of some really good deliveries into the box. He showed that again for Pigott's goal. He had a couple of other decent ones on the night, but he's also a little up and down with his delivery into the box. But again, without going mad about it, a good display from him as well. Please talk about Steve Evans.
Just before we move on, obviously Thomas Holy played. I diagnosed him with a severe case of thrombolytis after his performances thus far this season. Any symptoms you saw on Tuesday night? Has he recovered?
I think he's been taking the pills that you gave him.
Yeah, good.
As part of that, and rubbing in that cream. He responded really well. To be fair, I did wonder whether he'd play in this game. He did some punches that were really good. Came through traffic and punched. He's always quite happy playing at Gillingham. He gets a good reception. People are always very happy to see him at his old club, and that's because he's a lovely fella and clearly made a big impression there. And he played well, some good punches, decent enough with his feet, and made one good save from Ollie Lee in the second half. There was one moment in the first half where he'd just punched or caught a cross again. It had been a bit of a run of those, and I turned to Stu and said, Thomas, he's looking really good, he's looking solid. And then he immediately proceeded to throw the ball out to try and get it to Kenlock and threw it into the back of Luke Wolfenden's calf. Fortunately, it still just about made it to Myles. But yeah, he was fine. But once Walton's back, he's going to be that bit further away from it again. And he may not even play in that Colchester game if Walton's back involved and Hladky's still in the mix.
If that's a must win, you've got to go first 11, surely. Strongest. Anyway, we can come on to that. We've got a month to build up to that. I'm very excited about it. Hutchie there, Mike, referred to Holy being a lovely fella. Someone else who's a lovely fella is Steve Evans. I mean, clearly, a major miscarriage of justice happened on Tuesday night, because it's very, very unlike Mr. Evans to be moaning about anything after a game. He's usually so calm and fair-minded, and yet in this case, he said both Town goals were offside. They should have had a penalty, and Paul Cook agreed with him. Your thoughts, please?
Yeah, well, he's correct, of course. They were both offside, and they should have had a penalty. And Town won 2-0. So there you go. I mean, that's the way it is, isn't it? I mean, I'm afraid they don't have VAR in League One. So that's just tough titty, I'm afraid to have to say. You have to rely on the old linesperson. And if they didn't think he was offside, I actually saw Connor Chapman. He say he was miles onside. He said he looked across. He said it was like, look. It's the way it is, isn't it? You have to find a reason, don't you? You can't just accept you're beaten by the better side. Steve Evans is not the sort of manager who just accepts he's beaten by the better side. I'm sure he may have done on occasion, but overall, that's his feisty nature. I quite, well, let's be honest, as journalists, I mean, who wouldn't want Steve Evans as your manager? I mean, thank you very much. Yeah, keep it coming. You know, I mean, he's great, isn't he? I'd rather have. I know it's bizarre, and I know he moans, but I mean, does he really think we all believe what he says? I mean, because we know it's just, you know, a bit of sour grapes, but fair. But at least he says it. At least he's got the wherewithal to sort of open his mouth and say what he wants to say, rather than hiding behind a load of PC politically correct crap come out with. Know. And pardon.
I thought we're going off in a different direction then.
No, don't worry. I'm not going to talk. I could do if you want. What do you want me to talk about?
Just stay on Steve Evans, please. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, Steve Evans. Yeah. No, I mean, he's bitter, isn't he, about losing to Ipswich Town? I don't think he likes Ipswich Town. I do think he playing them every other week doesn't help, I suppose. We've become sort of the local derby, really, Gillingham versus Ipswich, as Hutch is for saying the other week. We played about 58 times the last 2 seasons, so that doesn't help. He didn't like Paul Lambert, so that doesn't help. Even though he's probably forgotten Paul Lambert's not there anymore, but I don't know if he likes Paul Cook. I don't really know. I have no idea.
He said he had a beer with Paul Cook after the game, which is when Cook was agreeing with him about all the injustices in the game towards the mighty Gills.
Wouldn't you just agree with him just to keep winding him up? Go, yes, Steve, yes.
Absolute
Steve,
disgrace.
I agree with you, Steve. Yeah, completely with you on that one, Steve.
Miles offside.
Yeah.
To be fair, the first one, I don't think we're ever going to see the correct replays to know whether these were offside or not. I thought the first one was offside.
Watching it back on the highlights, it does look offside.
Yeah, I thought he was. It doesn't mean I care.
No.
But I think it was. Chaplin did look on to me. It was a classic case of kind of stalking. Chaplin said he was kind of stalking the young defender there who wasn't holding the line correctly, and they moved it. One of them was anticipating a Joe Pigott ball over the top, and one of them wasn't. And it was just one of those that ultimately looks about 15 yards offside, but they moved pretty level. So I'd say that was okay. The penalties didn't look like penalties in particularly to me. But you never see the correct kind of replays from these to make that call.
The thing is, what I would love to see, I would love to see is these managers referee a game. I mean, could you imagine? So today's referee is Steve Evans.
That would be a struggle.
Ipswich Town versus Doncaster Rovers at Portman Road, and today's out he comes and he referees the match. Now, I'd love to see that because I'd love to see Premier League managers. I'd love to see Klopp. I'd love to see all of them. Today's referee, it's Chelsea versus West Ham, and today's referee is Jurgen Klopp. He's done his badges, and out he comes. Brilliant.
I like it. I would actually pay to see Steve Evans try and referee a game. I'd imagine he'd referee a game very much like Jan Molby used to play the game, essentially just in the centre circle, blowing his whistle from afar because he's not going to be able to keep up with players, either lad. I mean, you're right to say, Mike, of course, that he's gold for us because those comments yesterday blew up online. And when I was chatting to Stu yesterday about those comments, Andy, I read some of the quotes out, and he just laughed at me. He said, "Town smashed them," I believe was the phrase. You agree with that?
I think Steve will find a way to spin every game for his side to at least be competitive, and then be screwed out of it by the officials. I don't know how Gillingham fans would feel about that, because they will have Gillingham will watch this team every week and then hear his comments after the game, and there must be times where they think, come on, mate.
Give it a rest.
We just can't. You can't do that. But for us, it's great because it's twice a season, 3 times a season, as it is now. It'll be 9 games by the end of this season that are played. It's like the comedy sideshow. But to have that every week from your manager must be. I don't know. Does it get a bit boring just hearing bleating every time? I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it.
He's a silly boy.
I'd love it. I think it's fantastic. I mean, as you say, you can literally just flick your microphone on, just flick your thing out, just stand there grinning your head off because it's just gold. But yeah, I suppose as fans, you're right, Hutch. I mean, fans are not. It's the old stories about managers and coaches thinking fans are idiots and they don't really know what game they've watched. And of course, that is not the case and never has been the case. Fans are far more knowledgeable than managers like to give them credit for. And so, yes. Would you want to follow him every week? I don't know. Probably not.
Okay, friends, let's draw a line on the Gillingham there. Town have won. But before we move on, by way of a segue, how important, Andy, was this win for Town? Because clearly the euphoria last week, we were sitting here giggling like schoolgirls about Town winning 6-0 and everything was okay. Then they lose to Accrington Stanley and everything's dreadful again. But then, obviously, had they lost this game, it would have only exacerbated the situation. It would have made things even worse. But they've gone and won. And they've won comfortably. So how important was that in the grand scheme of things? Does it in any way change the narrative around Town? What would you say?
I probably wouldn't say it changes the narrative like hugely positively, but it does stop it dipping more negatively. So maybe it keeps things the same, which is fine. Clearly this competition isn't top of anybody's priority list. But it's a win, and a win is better than a loss. I think it's good to see that, and that's all I need to say on that.
Yeah.
But no, clearly, it was good to see some of these players play and play well, and just remind us that the 11 that have been playing in the league of late is not set in stone, and there are alternatives to that, and that those players can help a team win. Colin Chaplin spoke about sort of breeding a winning culture, and this would, again, without going overboard about it, this will help that. And look, it's a little step on the road. It's kind of on a slightly different road to the one that we want to see the steps being made on, but a step forward nonetheless, but not one. I wouldn't say it's one to kind of swing the other way and say all is right again.
I love it when you start dropping in metaphors about roads and pavements and walls and all that sort of stuff.
See, I feel like I feel like there's more to that one.
Yeah.
But I couldn't quite find what I was looking for.
I just want to say, friends, members of the KOA Army, Bill Shankly, Vince Lombardi, Parcells, Alex Ferguson, Bobby Robson, all those motivational greats have just been put in the corner by Andy Hutch Warren with this: a win is better than a loss.
Yeah.
Put that on your changing room wall and watch players run through walls for you. I want to see it on T-shirts. I want to see it on hats. I want to see it in everyone's home, because that, my friends, is the quote of quotes. A win is better than a loss. On you go. Right then, boys, let's move on, shall we? From that, something really profound to something else really profound. Our sponsors, shaving your nethers and such. KOA, use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery, all that great stuff they have at Manscaped, whether it be below the waist grooming needs, which I know Mike has a big need for, big fan of that.
Look at him looking down.
Looking at little Mike there. And also, I'm assuming you are wearing trousers, Mike. I don't know. Anyway, also, obviously, you can get the old nasal and ear groomers. You can get underwear. You can get cologne. You can get all sorts. Anyway, there's the nasal groomer, the weed whacker. Big fan of that, I am, my friends. That's code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery. If you're watching on video, and I've no idea if this even go out on video because Ross isn't around, Hutchie just did an excellent demonstration. Right then, boys, I want to talk about something wider now, on the wider sphere of Ipswich Town. And I'm coming to Mike first on this, because Mike, you have in recent weeks been an outspoken critic of 4-2-3-1 as a formation. You've written something this morning which says it's time for Town to go to a 4-4-2, and it's been widely received positively. It's got a lot of hits on our website. People love talking about formations and variations of. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you think they need to go 4-4-2?
Well, not really. Yeah, of course I do. Yes.
Okay,
good.
We'll move on.
Moving on.
No,
yeah.
I don't know what. It's probably. I suppose if I go back to 4-2-3-1, it's always, to me, my first thought on 4-2-3-1 is always, my first thought is 7 defenders or 7 defensive players. That only leaves 4. attacking players. Now Lee Evans' hat-trick against Doncaster, of course, blows that all out of the water. If that was happening every week, brilliant. But it doesn't happen every week. I just think, while Donacien is back, our 4-2-3-1 was set up with attacking backs, wing backs particularly, or wing type backs. And Donacien now coming in and staking his claim. He's not quite Kane Vincent-Young. And in fact, he's being praised quite a lot for his defensive qualities more than anything, which rather, talks about, how he defends very well. I just think there's enough quality going forward for us to be having two up front, one just very close to playing off. And you can still have your two wingers, and you can still have your two sitting players. Your two wingers could be more introvert rather than wide all the time. So also introvert, not introvert, invert. Sorry.
Yeah.
I could be introverted if they like.
We need introverted wingers. I've always said that.
Inverted a bit
do
more.
Not like
so they were inside a bit more before going out, rather than just being stuck out wide, making the pitch very wide, which is fine. I'm sounding like I know what I'm talking about here. I actually don't. But I mean, I just think it's a point that I would just like to see. I think we've got Cook talks a lot about his squad and how he doesn't know what his best team is, and how and I understand that. But he's the one thing he's always sticking with is his formation. He won't change that. He'll change everything else, and he'll change players and that's good for him. I would just like to see, just try something different. Try two up front and just see what happens. And last year, your fullbacks are just drop a little bit deeper, not bomb forward so much. You've got wingers who'll do that. You can have two strikers in the box. Anyway, so that's my thought. Yeah, I was quite surprised at how many people actually agreed with me. I thought I'd get the usual sort of bacon. You don't know what you're talking about. Will you get this dinosaur off Twitter? Blah, 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 that sort of thing. But actually, quite a few people actually sort of thought might be an idea. But
your son really shouldn't be sending those sort of messages, mate. That's out of order. Unbelievable.
It was him. I knew it was him. Because he calls himself silly names. Like well, I won't say what he calls himself, but one to do with chocolate. But anyway, and so you don't want to know the rest. And yes. So I know some of them for him, but overall,
in your formation, then basically what you're doing is you're bringing Piggott in and sticking him alongside Bon, and everything else pretty much stays the same, does it?
Yeah.
So essentially your argument is it makes you a bit more solid, it gives you more options in the box, all round better.
It just plays the number instead of the number 10 role coming and picking the ball up. The number 10 role is already up there, but he can come short. I don't want Pickett and Bond standing side by side 2 yards from each other. Pickett particularly loves coming to get the ball, but he doesn't come all the way back as a number 10 does to pick the ball and then turn and run. Like, because you turn, if Celina picks the ball up, or number 10, he's turning, he's running, and he's looking at what? Bon. I mean, he must be, and 2 defenders or 3 defenders there, I don't know, all going wide. And I would just like to see have a few more options. But as I said, that's just I would just like a trial of it. Because we've got 10 games in, 10 points. We all know what we're all about. We all know it's a long journey and things will be better. We know that. And I agree with that. Just mix it up a bit, perhaps.
There we go. Andy, you have often said on here you quite like a 4-2-3-1. Clearly, harking back to the days of Lambert, we were bemoaning and lamenting the fact he had no idea what he's doing in the formation. You've changed in formation like it often is changing in socks. But in terms of the 4-4-2 argument, what do you make of that? Any merit to it?
I think you, Mark, have just highlighted what the crux of the argument is. It's such a slight tweak, isn't it? That it's bringing Joe Piggott into the team, and I guess Mike probably dropping someone like Scott Fraser out of it potentially. Yep. I think you can still do that without kind of changing I don't think the system changes things that radically. You can. I honestly don't think there's the changing of a system is going to have that much of a difference. In a 4-2-3-1, you've still got I assume your central midfield in a 4-4-2, Mike, would still be something like Evans and Morsey. So you've still got them in there. You've still got let's say for argument's sake, Burns and Celina would be your 2 wingers. Still got them, and all that would do would bring in sort of Piggott to play up front with Bon, and one of them would have to come a little bit deeper, which is essentially what a 4-2-3-1 is anyway. It's all quite nominal in terms of who stands where when there's a goal kick, essentially. Paul Lambert, that great philosopher, always used to say that it's not about formations. I think Paul Cook would agree with you. It's not really about formations. It's about players performing, which I think is probably why Cook is so rigid in his system, in that it just removes a variable of players know what they have to do. You're putting them in that situation, and then you have to go and try and win the game. And I don't think setting them up in a 4-4-2 is going to make an awful lot of difference to what they try and do. I'd like to maybe see that move used a little more during a game, potentially, with Piggott brought on and playing within the already existing system, which I guess would make things look a little bit more 4-4-2-y. We've seen that at times. I'd maybe like to see that a little bit more often. But in terms of my worries about Ipswich Town, the formation and the system is absolutely nowhere near top of that list. If it's me, I'm absolutely fine with what Cook is doing. I just maybe would like to see a little bit more flexibility within games rather than going with it from the off, because I don't think it would make that much difference.
Okay, we'll see. We'll never. I mean, obviously, Cook has said on numerous times he's wedded to 4-2-3-1, and you're right, Andy. At times, it can look a little bit like 4-4-2 anyway, can't it, in games?
Yeah.
So, we will see. Mike has given his point of view, and I know a lot of people agree with him. So, do let us know your thoughts on that. I want to move on to something else a little bit different, boys, with a short interlude, because I listened to your excellent podcast that I wasn't on, as I do when I was lifting weights yesterday, and there was one conversation in particularly got me pumped up. And that was a James Bond conversation, baby, because Mr. Bacon, you were talking about the best Bonds and the best Bond films. Skyfall, 100%, the best Bond film for me. Daniel Craig, 100% the best Bond, mainly because that's what James Bond would look like with all the various skills that he's got in his locker, the ability to kill a man with his bare hands. He's going to be well built. He's not going to be like a streak of piss like Pierce Brosnan. That's never going to happen. So I just wanted to add into that, though, because I think often overlooked in the Bond conversation is Timothy Dalton. Come at me, because A View to a Kill, fantastic film, absolutely fantastic film. Yes, it hasn't got all the bells and whistles and big money production side of things, but that for me is fantastic. So I just wanted to throw that in there and get that out there as a thought on Bond. I'm very much looking forward to seeing the new one, because I'm told it's the best Bond film there has ever been in terms of the reviews. Have you seen it yet, Mike?
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah, I was going to go tonight, but I'm not going to go tonight now because it's been a bit of an issue with the garden. So I've got to do a bit of de-heading later on.
Okay,
getting to that time of year.
I'm never sure when you say things like that if that's the actual case or if it's just a euphemism for something else.
Oh no, it's not. No, it's not useful. No. We've got a little few garden duties later on before the clocks go forward.
Okay.
Or back, or whatever they do. What they do, spring back, don't they? So yes. Well, these things got to be done. I mean, you can't let your garden just take off.
Are you putting your garden to bed for winter? Is that what you're doing?
Well, that's a very good way of putting it, I suppose. Yes, I've basically been told to get in the bloody garden from 5:30 for an hour. So that's the end of that. And so I won't be going to Bond, but I will be going shortly. Timothy Dalton's injured. Was he Australian? I can't remember.
No, you're thinking of George Lazenby, the very
Lord Lazenby, Australian. But I quite like Dalton. I think he did quite well, actually. I like that film. I think he's very overlooked, like Lazenby, of course. I mean, we forget about them. Dalton was, that was a good film he was in.
Dalton's like the kind of the Bond equivalent of Mick McCarthy, someone who kind of did okay on a shoestring budget and kind of carried the squad forward into the big money era of Brosnan and Craig. But yeah, underrated, I think. And putting the garden to bed is exactly what we're going to be doing this weekend, Mike. You have to do it, don't you? Cut back all the plants. I mean, put the garden furniture away. Get the old covers on things. Get
maybe one last cut of the grass. I don't know. I mean, if it stays dry, perhaps the one last one before March next year. I mean, Hutchie loves all this because he likes the winter. I mean, I hate the bloody thing. I'm a summer man all day long. Get me in a pair of very short speedos and out in the back garden, waxed up and drinking pina colada, and I'm away. But so I'm not really looking forward to winter much, to be honest. So
there's an image and a challenge. I know we have quite a few keen photoshoppers in the Carre Army. So can we please see Mike Bacon photoshopped onto the body of that man from the whiskey advert walking down the beach with the speedos holding the glass of whiskey? I can't remember what whiskey that was advertising, but please let that happen. Get to work. I know particularly Mullet and Patrick Palmer a bit handy with the old Photoshop. Mullet, put your face on Lady Gaga wearing her famous meat dress post your pork poncho, Mike. I don't know if you saw that. It scarred me for life.
Well, I did see it, and what's his name? Mr. Mullet.
Mr. Mullet.
Yeah, Mr. Mullet. You'll be very pleased to know, Mr. Mullet, you made my two boys absolutely pee themselves with laughter. So congratulations to that. I couldn't even believe what I was looking at. They were absolutely ecstatic. What a complete plonker I look. Who did this? Big respect to them and all that sort of thing. So my 20-year-old lads, they absolutely looked up to you for that, Mr. Mullet. Congratulations. Personally, I didn't really understand it, but there you go.
There you go. Next challenge set, Mike in Speedos. I tell you what else could work, actually. What's his name? Winston in Sexy Beast with Mike's face on. There we go. Make it happen. Boys, let's move on to something else in football, which is a good talking point. And I want to come back to you, Mike, because it involves a legend of Ipswich Town saying something really quite unexpected. Terry Butcher, the hard man icon of football, obviously that iconic image of him with blood streaming down his face, and various quotes about how hard he was. There was that great quote, wasn't there, Gaza, on Terry Butcher about people coming into his house and winning. And Gaza said he was terrified, he shit himself. Anyway, Terry Butcher reckons, Mike, that we should phase out heading in football because obviously there've been numerous research done about the increased risk of dementia. We've had people sadly lose their lives early to Alzheimer's, which has been linked to heading the bricks of football they used to have back in the day. You spoke to Terry about this. What did he say, and what do you make of it?
Well, first let me just say what a gentleman Terry Butcher is. I mean, he was an absolute hero of mine back in the. I mean, and like most people, a colossus of a player that you were scared stiff to ask him for his autograph. But underneath all that, he's an absolute gentleman and he's a top man. And I've always had a lot of time for Terry. So it was lovely to catch up with him. Yeah, it's strange that he'd be the last person you'd think would think, let's ban heading from football, the man who headed a football more than anyone. But then again, he's sat around, unfortunately, and he's looked and he's seen people of his era and beyond who are now suffering. It's very sad, Alzheimer's and dementia, particularly, a lot of it attributed to football. What he was saying basically is he'd like to see headering in football slowly phased out, and he's been perfectly sensible about it. He's it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to suddenly start next season, but as he did make the point, so many more goals are scored with feet than their head and always have been, and football today is played a lot more. The idea of playing the ball out from the back has become, even at lower levels. I watched a non-league game the other week, and the goal there was very few goal kicks. I was surprised how many big punts up the pitch there was. That used to be the norm. It used to be the norm. So rolling the ball out, and as he said, if you just don't use headers, a ball is played up, you've got to control it on your chest, or you've got to position yourself to make sure you just can't header it. You've got to step back a bit, you've got to step forward a bit, whatever you've got to do. Is it going to happen? Do you know what? I actually think it could. I actually genuinely believe in 5 or 6, 7, 8, 5 or 6 years' time that actually could, because I believe the science will suggest there is a link. Yes, footballs were harder and thicker, but balls are also kicked a lot faster these days. They're kicked a lot. I mean, what you have to understand, a free kick thumped from 20 yards out, the balls might be quite light, but that hits you full in the head. If that doesn't wrap your brain about in your skull, I don't believe it. Of course it does. They don't have to be big medicine balls that you were just winning headers with. So I think football has evolved and will continue to evolve. I genuinely think that is a possibility that you could see. I'm not saying you'll go straight in the Premier League with this, but I think lower games, particularly youth games, will end up just playing. You'll be no headers. You'll just be playing the ball on the ground. And it's a bit like what I played a bit of walking football the other year, which is for more senior members of society. But walking football, of course, the ball's always on the ground. You can't boot the ball above head height. So I played that for an hour, and the ball was never above head height, which people just passing it about. So I think it's going to come from the bottom upwards. It's great to talk to Terry, and I mean, he feels very strongly about it, and he's going to work hard to keep he said the chats that he put it out there, and he said the reaction from a lot of people has been immensely positive. He's been, I think, quite surprised and happily surprised.
I think because of who he is as well, and it's something you would not expect Terry Butcher to say. As I say, that iconic kind of hard man of English football. I mean, I guess you could phase it out of training, can't you? Looking at other sports, rugby, they're talking about limiting contact training, aren't they, to 15 minutes a week? And certainly in my sport, my background, fight sports, there's a big move towards not hard sparring, or very much limiting hard sparring, because sparring often is where you get a lot of this build-up of accumulation of blows to the head. So it can be phased out of training. What do you make out of phasing out of the game, though, Hutchie? Can you ever see a football game where there's no headers?
I'm struggling with that. I think you're both right in things that you've just said, Mike. I think it will start from the bottom up, and I think not having kids kind of heading footballs routinely is really important. And then also, Mark, as you've just said, I think training is and they're doing that. There is that guidance now, isn't there? Is it 10 high force headers a week? Nuno Nuno at Tottenham has already kind of said that they're not sticking to that.
Yeah, he did.
And I'm sure he's not the only one. He's the only one that said it. And I'm sure there are clubs where that's happening more and more. But for me, I would say that youth football very definitely and training, like you've said, Mark's fight sports, rugby, the NFL is very strict on how many practices you can have a season wearing full pads and having hits and things like that. I think the training side of it, just not heading 50 footballs at the end of a training session because your big centre half needs to be dominating games. I think that's the way to go now, and could be really important for this. I'm struggling to see professional football in the near future suddenly basically being like five-a-side rules, keep it on the floor kind of thing. But I think there are some real things that can be done, as both of you have just mentioned, to kind of cure what is clearly a serious issue.
I can say with kind of experience, and I don't know how in terms of your background experience, I've done both. I've been punched in the face and I've headed a football at high speed, and they are very similar kind of feelings. With being punched in the face, I always describe it as like a light bulb going off in front of you, like someone taking a picture of you really close, and you get that kind of shung sort of feeling. And it's the same kind of thing with heading. So certainly a crossover for me. My issue with taking heading out of the game as a whole, Mike, is it will change the game completely. I mean, things like corners, for example, would then be pretty much pointless, wouldn't they? Because everyone's going to know he's going to play it along the floor then. You can't put the ball in the air. That completely changes the nature of football.
Of course it does. And as I said, this is not going to be an overnight thing. I think I might take a bit more interest. I don't take interest in watching Manchester City, but I think I might just take a little more interest in watching them. Be interested to watch them play 90 minutes and wonder how many headers there actually are, how many of their players headed the ball how many times. It'd be quite interesting. Yeah. It might be a lot. It might be far more than I'm thinking. They might have 30 or 40 headers a game. I'd be very interested to find out how Pep Guardiola puts up his team. You know, how he gets his team to play football, and how many times there are headers from a Manchester City player. There's going to be some. Of course there is. There might be loads. I don't know. I haven't really... Terry Butcher's debate or his conversation is going to make us look. I watched a non-league game, said the other day, and I was surprised, really surprised, how many times the goalie rolled it out to the fullback and in it went. And it was played up to midfielders quite low to the chest. It was actually played so they could keep hold of the ball. No good play it to his head because he was just going to fling it onto nobody. You know, and I was quite surprised at that. And so when Butcher came out with these comments, do you know what I thought? It's going to be. I still think it might happen. And he also mentioned young coaches. He said young coaches will come into the game, and they'll be their mantra. Pep Guardiola has come into the football as a coach and changed a lot of the way coaching is. I mean, who's ever thought of not playing with a striker or playing a false number 9, whatever you want to talk? Just ridiculous. But he's done that, and others are following. And it's just that little snowball effect, doesn't it? Of people coming into the game, then it starts to people copy. Especially if they see a bit of success, they copy what's going on. Barcelona back in the day with their little bit of football, it was, people started copying how they played the game. The number 10 roles, classic example. So maybe.
I think it's a really interesting debate, and it's a good one to have because there are certainly issues around head injuries in the kind of sports we've talked about. So we'll watch this one with interest. As an aside,
I was quite lucky, of course, Heath, because I'm not very tall, so I never headed the ball very much when I played. So I mean, it didn't really, I spent most of the time jumping up, and it was always going over my head, to be perfectly honest. So, and I usually played for teams that just did hoof it over your head. So
I assumed you'd headed the ball quite a lot, Mike. I've got to say, given I thought I might explain your unique character, shall we say? Anyway,
thank you very much.
As an aside, Terry Butcher, one of the very few people in this job that I've ever been completely starstruck and awestruck by. I remember we had him in for a podcast when I wasn't involved for a pre-season podcast, and he walked across the office and Stewie said, "Hi, Mike, this is Terry Butcher." And I went, "Hi, Mr. Butcher," because he is my era of football. I had that picture on my wall of him covered in blood. So yeah, a very, very nice thing to be able to speak to Terry these days, and what a nice guy he is. And
he was a lovely guy, and also I phoned him about 6 times because I had no signal out here where I live, and he was most polite. I mean, he could easily said on the 6th time, "What the hell do you beep?" It kept going off, But he was very polite, and no, lovely man, lovely man.
I think it takes someone like him saying something like that to really get the debate going and rolling. Right then, boys. One final debate there is to be had on this particular podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it thus far. Shrewsbury this weekend, Andy Warren. Ipswich Town clearly have got to smash them to smithereens. They're in the bottom 4. And there's one big kind of question mark going into the game, which is we know Bersant Celina is on international duty. So who replaces him? What do you do with the team in that respect, and anything else you think might need doing?
I think that's it. I think that is the debate. And for me, I'd go Kyle Edwards. I think even after the games the other night, I think Chaplin clearly did his cause no harm with a decent, especially in the second half, good performance and a good goal as well. But I think Chaplin and Fraser are that little bit too one-paced potentially to play together. So what I would do is probably still, even though he's a little quiet the other night, I'd bring Kyle Edwards in to start, shift Fraser inside to the number 10 position, and still go with Wes Burns. That's what I'd do.
So everything else stays the same from the
yeah. So that rolls back to Morsey and Evans.
Yeah.
I think the assumption is that Coulson's not going to be fit. Hopefully proved wrong. If he is, that's one to think about probably for Penny. I don't think there's overly much to do with this side. I think you just need to hope that they've learned a real lesson. Well, we discussed this so much earlier in the week, didn't we? Learned such a big lesson from that Accrington game as a team, and just get back to it in this one against Shrewsbury, and like you say, hope for the same outcome as the Doncaster game.
Agree with that, Mike? Is that what you'd be doing? Be putting Fraser in the 10 and Edwards out left?
I'd have Piggott in the team, but that's another story altogether. I don't. It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously, Cook says, his players have got a chance to prove to get themselves into the team this Saturday, and then he said a lot of players have done themselves good. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, because talk is a bit unfair. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, say talk is cheap, because I don't mean it like that. But I mean, if you're going to make statements like that, come on then, show me what you can do, and then come away saying players show me what they can do, and then you pick the same team that played at Accrington. Well, you can't exactly, because obviously Celina's there, but I don't know. I can't. I might see. I thought Chaplin might play, to be honest, but I don't know. Maybe he might play. Maybe I think
he really could. Don't get me wrong. I think there's every chance that he might. It's just maybe, I don't know, because I think that would mean Chaplin would probably play as the 10, and Fraser would stay left. And I don't know what it is, but I just don't that combination just doesn't excite me. I think that Edwards is something different that you could play there. But I think both are going to play some real part in this game. I
might give Burns a rest and play Edwards personally as well. That's something I might think about.
That needs to happen at some. They need to think about that at some point. We have to assume that this Achilles problem hasn't gone away. They don't just vanish, do they? So at some point, clearly he's resting from these trophy games, and there's a blank midweek next week. The last we spoke to Paul Cook about Wes Burns, he really wasn't training an awful lot at all, and was just kind of playing games. At some point, you have to fear that something might aggravate with that. So hopefully they're managing him properly.
How would you do that though, Mike? So you rest Burns. What, you put Chaplin out wide right, do you, and then Fraser in the 10 and Edwards left? How would you do that?
I'd have Edwards. You can play Edwards right or left. I just take Burns out and put Edwards. I don't believe in this one. You can only play right wing or left wing. I mean, you should be able to play both. You should play both sides.
I agree with that. Particularly players like Edwards. I can see that Burns is only really comfortable on his right foot, playing on the right side, but classy kind of. Yeah. And not to say that Burns isn't a classy player. He's got his own class, of course, but players like Celina and Edwards, they can play on both sides, can't they?
Mo Salah spends all his time on the right wing. He's completely left-footed, well, not all the time, but you know what I mean? Cutting inside is a huge part of the game. I mean, it's Foden, I'm talking top players here, but that's what they do. Edwards, I think, could play right all it. I don't see, Celina certainly could. And I think mixing that up again, this little mixing up of forward before mate and sort of sets. This is all I'm looking for, really, instead of everything sort of set a little bit in stone and just mixing up a bit. But I'd certainly have Edwards starting, and plus I think Chaplin might start. Maybe Burns or Fraser might get probably. Sorry, Burns might get missed out. I don't know.
Edwards, I reckon, has to start if he's ready to go the full 90 minutes. He has to start because he brings so much extra to the team. Hutchie, can we agree though, without beating around the bush, this is a game that Ipswich Town should be winning all day long? If they're if they're really serious about doing stuff in this league, they have to be smashing teams like Shrewsbury at home.
Yeah, we spoke earlier in the week, didn't we, about the points deficit and what's required from this point onwards to get where they want to get. And the problem with labelling these games as must-win games is that if it doesn't happen, then you suddenly are in a situation where, oh, you said that was must-win, so what happens now? But yeah, they've teams against the games against the bottom four at home. They need 3 points. They need more than 2 points a game from this point in to get automatic promotion. If you don't pick up and give yourself some wriggle room by beating Shrewsbury at home, then you're just making your task even harder. So yeah, they do have to win this game.
Yeah. I did a piece of my column this week where I went back to the 97, I think it's 97, 98 season. It was a year that Town thrashed Norwich City 5-0. So that was that season. And Burley's team that season hadn't started okay-ish, but nothing special. A bit better than Ipswich have this season. And I think they lost one of their last 22 games. I mean, they drew quite a few as well, but they lost just one of their last 22. And that still only got them in the playoffs. So you can see what Ipswich Town currently situation they're in. As Andy said, they need more than 2 points a game to get automatic. So they can't afford to come off from Shrewsbury and go, oh, well, yeah, we're still gelling, or we're still this, or we're still that. And it's got to start happening. It's got to start happening. Hopefully, the Doncaster thing and the Accrington thing was a blip.
Yeah, they haven't played Sunderland, they haven't played Wigan, they haven't played Portsmouth, they haven't played Wickham, they haven't played so many of the sides that are right up there at the moment. That there's some big tests to come, and they're going to need some if they're going to get where they want to go. There's going to be dropped points from those games. That's for sure. They're not going to suddenly blitz all of those. So you need to take 3 points from games like this at home just to give yourself some breathing room. Otherwise, you ultimately and quite quickly probably get to the point where you're needing to beat everyone, and I don't think that's going to happen for any team realistically. So, yeah, you have to beat a team that's in the bottom four at home, and I'm sure they will.
100%. Right then, time to put your money where your mouth is, Hutchie. There's one more T to cross and I to dot, and that's the £1 million picks section of the show. You said there that Town are going to beat Shrewsbury. I can't remember actually. I did listen to the show on Tuesday, but I can't remember what you did over the weekend. So I can't remember what the pot is. But fill us in and what are you going for this weekend?
A spectacularly successful weekend where I won both bets to get the pot back to £916,000.
Wow!
But I'm going to spend a significant amount of that this weekend. I'm going to put £300,000 on them to win this game simply at 3-4, which returns £525,000, and I'm going to do the cheeky little 16,000 on Macaulay Bond to score first at 3-1, which will return another 66,000. So hopefully an Ipswich win this weekend. You're going to ask me for my prediction. I'm going to say 3-1. And if they can do that, they will get the pot back above the watermark and back into the black this weekend.
300 grand. That's the biggest single bet so far, isn't it, that you've placed? Your
yes. Yeah, that's true.
3-1, Hutchie's saying. What are you saying, Mickey?
I'm saying 2-0. I think Ipswich will win 2-0. Yes, I'd be very disappointed if they don't beat Shrewsbury. No disrespect, but they really ought to be on it to beat Shrewsbury, especially after the Doncaster at home game. So yes, I might put 40 grand of my own money on that.
just the 40k. Why not, Mike? Yeah. Cash, I assume.
Oh yeah. Is there anything else?
So Hutchie saying 3-1, Mike saying 2-0. I'm going to say 3-0. This is the sort of game, make no mistake, this is the sort of game that Town have to win if they're really serious. If they are who we think they are, to use a phrase from Dennis Green, American football back in the day, this is a game that Town have to be winning. Boys, any other business? We've talked about a lot today, and I've had tremendous time chatting with you in this virtual podcast room. Anything else you want to add, Mike, first of all, because you're most likely to have something you want to add?
Well, is it definitely a time to get pick your sunflowers up? I mean, and trim them up and cut them down. I believe it is. I've got a couple of sunflowers on the back, you see, and I think they're starting to obviously look a little bit worse for wear. A friend of mine down the road, he's got like 10 on his. He looks really flashy git. You know, he's got 10 along his bloody fence. It looks really, and I noticed him starting to trim them down. I just wonder if anyone knew.
I don't. I mean, I can get on to Charlie Dimmock if you like. See what she says. I mean, why don't you do it for him, Mike? If he's flash, just go along with a chainsaw, just cut them all down.
Cut them off in the middle of the
night.
Just
help him out.
Okay, yeah, I could do mine first, then go and cut his down, or,
Yeah,
or
so-
just do his down and just leave mine up. Yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
sorry, Flash Steve. I thought I was doing you a favour. I don't know if his name's Steve. I hope it's not.
It is.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, there you go. Flash Steve. Serves you right, mate. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing this weekend anyway. Obviously, following Town smashing Shrewsbury. Hutchie, any other business?
No other business from me.
No other business, as is usual from Mr. Hutchie. Thank you very much for joining us today. Remember to support our sponsor, manscaped.com. KOA is the code to use for 20% off and free delivery at manscaped.com. Follow us across all our social medias, Kings of Anglia on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I hope you enjoyed listening today. We've learned a lot of things. We've learned that pineapple may or may not belong on a pizza. Timothy Dalton was a vastly overlooked Bond in the style of Mick McCarthy as a manager at Ipswich Town. And most importantly, friends, we've learned, and this is the big one, I want you to write this down, a win is better than a loss. Have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you again next time.